It was a hot afternoon in the city. People rushed in and out of buildings, busy with their lives. One building stood taller than the rest. Con National Bank, the biggest bank in the city. Inside the bank, the air was cool. People wore suits, expensive watches, and polished shoes. The floor was clean, the walls were shiny, and the staff behind the counters smiled only at rich customers. Then the door opened. Everyone turned to look. An old man walked in slowly. His clothes were dirty and torn. His shoes were almost falling apart. His white beard was long, and his eyes were tired. He held a small bag close to his chest. People stared at him. Some laughed quietly. Others whispered to each other, "Who let this beggar in?" One man said. The old man ignored them. He walked up to the first counter. "I want to withdraw some money," he said softly. The lady at the counter looked at him with surprise. "Do you even have an account here?" she asked, almost laughing. "Yes," the man replied. "This is the paper with my account number." He handed her a small folded piece of paper. The lady took the paper and rolled her eyes. She typed the number into her computer. Suddenly, her face changed. She frowned. Then she looked again at the paper, then at the screen. She called another staff member. Soon, 4 staff members were looking at the screen, then at the old man. The manager came over and asked, "What's going on?" The lady whispered, "This account has a lot of money, but he doesn't look like the owner." The manager looked at the old man and said sharply, "Where did you get this account number? Tell the truth." "It's mine," the man said calmly. Now the manager was angry. "Security," he shouted. "This man is trying to steal." 2 guards came and grabbed the old man's arms. "Wait," he said. "I'm not a thief. That is really my account." But no one listened. The people in the bank were now recording videos on their phones. Some laughed. Others said, "Throw him out." One lady even shouted, "These poor people always try to cheat." The old man tried to speak, but his voice was shaking. "Please," he said, "call my son. He knows everything." The manager laughed loudly. "Your son? Who is he?" "A beggar like you." The man looked up slowly, his voice calm but serious. "No, my son is Ayan Khan, and he owns this bank." Suddenly, the room went quiet. No one laughed now. The guards looked at each other. The manager's face froze. Someone from the crowd whispered, "Ayan Khan, the CEO." The manager forced a fake smile. "You're joking, right?" The old man didn't answer. He slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out a broken phone. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. He opened the contacts. There was only one name saved. "My son, Ayan." He pressed the call button. People watched in silence. The phone rang once, twice. Then someone answered. A deep, calm voice came through the speaker. "Dad, are you okay?" The old man's eyes filled with tears. "They called me a thief." Again. There was a long pause. Then the voice said, "I'm coming now. No one touches you again." The old man looked up at the manager and said softly, "You made a mistake." The bank manager stared at the old man. His lips moved, but no sound came out. He had just heard the old man say something shocking. "My son is Ayan Khan. He owns this bank." For a moment, the whole bank was silent. Then the silence broke with loud laughter. "Are you serious?" the manager said. "You? A beggar? Your son owns this bank." The staff joined in, laughing and clapping like it was a joke. One of the guards said, "Nice story, old man. Got any more fairy tales?" The old man didn't speak. He just looked down at his phone. The call had ended, but he knew his son was coming. The manager crossed his arms. "This is your last warning. Tell us where you really got that account number." "I told you," the old man replied. "It's mine. My son opened that account for me." "Enough," the manager shouted. "Throw him out." The guards pulled the old man by the arm. He didn't fight. He didn't shout. He simply walked as they pushed him toward the door. As they reached the entrance, the man looked around the room. People were watching with judgment in their eyes. Some were recording on their phones. No one stepped forward to help him. He stepped outside. The street was hot. The sun was strong. His hand shook as he reached into his small bag and pulled out a bottle of water. It was almost empty. He sat down on the footpath near the bank. People walked past him like he was invisible. A few meters away, a boy looked at him and whispered to his mother, "Why is that old man crying?" The mother pulled the boy away. "Don't go near him," she said. The man wiped his tears. He looked again at his phone. The screen had a small crack near the corner. There was only one number saved. "My son, Ayan." He stared at it for a while, then whispered, "I didn't want to disturb you, but they forced me to." He thought of the last time he saw his son, 6 months ago, at a family event. Ayan had worn a black suit and was surrounded by reporters. He had grown into a successful businessman. But Ayan never forgot where he came from. He always told his father, "I will never be ashamed of you." The old man smiled a little at that memory. Back inside the bank, the mood was changing. One young employee quietly searched Ayan Khan on his phone. His eyes widened. "Sir," he whispered to the manager. "I think he was telling the truth." "What?" the manager asked, annoyed. "Look at this." The employee showed a photo of Ayan Khan standing in front of the same bank building. The caption read, "Youngest CEO of Khan National Bank, a self-made billionaire, son of a retired school janitor." The manager snatched the phone. His face turned pale. Another staff member ran up. "Sir, our head office just called. Mr. Ayan Khan is coming here now." The room went quiet again. This time, there was no laughter. The manager began to sweat. "Clean up everything. Look busy. And don't say a word about what just happened." Outside, the old man still sat quietly on the pavement. He took a deep breath and looked up at the sky. "I gave him everything I had," he said softly. "My food, my sleep, my health. I worked nights cleaning schools just to pay for his books." Tears rolled down his cheeks again. "I never asked him for anything. I just wanted respect." Suddenly, a black car stopped in front of the bank. It was long, shiny, and expensive. 2 guards in black suits stepped out. Then came a man in a dark blue suit, wearing sunglasses. He walked with power in every step. The old man looked up. A smile slowly appeared on his face. It was his son, Ayan Khan. The staff inside watched in silence as the CEO of their bank walked straight toward the poor old man sitting on the street. One staff member whispered, "That really is his father." The manager stepped back, fear on his face. Ayan stood in front of the old man. He removed his sunglasses. "Dad," he said, his voice calm but serious. "Who touched you?" The old man looked at him with love and pain in his eyes. "They called me a thief," he said. "They didn't believe I belonged here." Ayan turned to look at the bank. His face changed. The smile was gone. Now there was fire in his eyes. He turned to his assistant and said just one line. "Lock the doors. No one leaves until I speak to everyone." Ayan stood on the pavement, his eyes fixed on the bank building. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. His silence was more powerful than any shout. Behind him, the guards blocked the bank's main doors. No one was allowed to leave. Staff inside were frozen. The same people who had laughed were now shaking. The manager ran around the lobby, pretending to be calm. "Everyone get back to work. Fix your ties. Clean the counters." But it was too late. A storm was coming, and it was wearing a dark blue suit. Ayan turned to his father. "Are you hurt?" he asked gently. "No, son," the old man replied. "Just my heart." Ayan knelt beside him. He took his father's hand and said, "You are the reason I'm here. The reason I became something." His father gave a weak smile. "You always say that." "Because it's true." The flash of cameras appeared from nearby. Someone had already started recording. The public was gathering. They whispered, took photos, and waited to see what would happen next. Ion stood up. He gave his father a bottle of cold water and said, "Please rest. I'll be back." Then he walked into the bank. Every footstep echoed. The sound of his shoes hitting the marble floor was louder than the voices inside. People stepped aside. No one dared to look into his eyes. The manager rushed to greet him. "Mr. Ion, what an unexpected visit." Ion didn't shake his hand. He looked at him and said, "You touched my father." The manager's smile faded. I didn't know who he was." "That's the problem," Ion replied. "You shouldn't treat people based on who they are. You should treat them based on how you would want to be treated." "Sir, I was just following protocol." "You call him a thief," Ion interrupted, his voice firm. He looked poor. "Sir, we had to protect the bank." Ion laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. "Do you know who paid my college fees?" he asked. The manager stayed silent. "My father, a school janitor. He cleaned toilets so I could go to school. He skipped meals so I could eat. That man built me. And now he owns this bank through me." He paused. "You thought you were protecting this bank, but today you shamed it." All the staff were now watching. No one moved. No one blinked. Then Ion did something unexpected. He turned to his assistant and said, "Call an emergency staff meeting. I want everyone here." The assistant nodded and quickly sent the message. In minutes, every employee of that branch was standing in the main lobby. Security guards, cashiers, customer service, managers, all stood silently. Ion walked to the center of the room. He looked at each face. Some looked scared. Some looked guilty. A few looked ashamed. Then he asked a simple question. "How many of you judged my father by his clothes today?" No one answered. He asked again, louder, "How many?" A few hands went up. Slowly, nervously. Ion nodded. "Thank you for being honest. The rest of you are cowards." He walked back and forth slowly. "You all wear nice suits, drive good cars, and work in a clean office, but you forgot one thing: respect. You think only rich people deserve it. You think money gives someone value. But today, the richest man in this building was thrown out like trash." He pointed to the main door. "My father was outside on that footpath, thirsty and tired. And not one of you gave him a chair, a glass of water, or even a little kindness." A tear rolled down one staff member's cheek. "I want every single employee here to remember this day. Because today, you didn't just insult my father. You insulted every poor man who ever walked into this bank." Ion turned to the manager. "You are suspended. Effective now." The manager gasped. "Sir, please, I have a family. My father begged you to call me." You laughed at him. Guards walked forward and took the manager's ID card and badge. He was removed from the building as everyone watched. Ion took a deep breath. He looked at the other employees. "I am not here to scare you. I'm here to remind you. This bank was built by pain, struggle, and sacrifice, not by money alone." He turned to his assistant. "From tomorrow, every employee must go through new training. Not in sales, not in numbers, but in humanity." He paused. "And I want my father's photo at the entrance, with a small note: respect is earned by heart, not clothes." After Ion Khan gave his powerful speech, the atmosphere inside the bank completely changed. The staff looked at each other nervously. Some wiped their faces. Some looked down in shame. Others began to whisper, scared about what would happen next. Ion didn't speak again. He simply walked out of the building. Outside, his father was still sitting on the footpath. When Ion saw him, He smiled softly. "I'm sorry you were treated like that, Dad," he said. "But I've made things right." The old man gently held his son's hand. "You didn't have to do all that, Ion. I'm just glad to see you." Ion nodded. "Let me take you home." But inside the bank, a new kind of storm had started. Panic. People began talking in low voices. "Did you hear? The manager is fired. He suspended the head of the branch, just like that. I think some of us might lose our jobs too." Even the assistant manager looked pale. He quickly went into his office and locked the door. One young woman, a teller, sat in silence. Her name was Rani, and she had also laughed earlier when the old man was being insulted. Now she felt sick to her stomach. She remembered the look in the old man's eyes. Not anger, but deep pain. "I didn't mean to hurt him," she whispered. "I just followed everyone else." Another staff member said, "We all did. That doesn't make it right." By the afternoon, the head office had sent emails to everyone. Emergency meeting. Mandatory attendance. Zero tolerance for discrimination. Some staff members began to cry. Others tried to clean their desks or make themselves look busy, hoping it would help. Rani received a message on her screen. "Mr. Ayan Khan has requested a written apology from every employee who mistreated the elderly man this morning." Her hands trembled. She took out a sheet of paper and began to write. "To the respected father of Mr. Ayan Khan, I am deeply sorry for how I treated you today. I judged you by your clothes, not your heart. I laughed when I should have helped. I see now how wrong I was. I hope you can forgive me." She placed the letter in an envelope, quietly hoping that her apology would be accepted. Meanwhile, Ayan and his father reached home. The house was not a palace. It was simple, neat, and warm. The old man looked around and smiled. "You've done well, son. You taught me everything, Dad," Ayan said. "I just followed your example." They sat together for tea, something they hadn't done in months. But back at the bank, things were falling apart. The regional director had arrived without notice. He walked into the branch with a cold expression. "I want to know everything that happened here today," he said. Staff were called one by one. Each person gave their version of the story. Some lied, saying they didn't see anything. Others told the truth. When Rani was called, she stood up nervously. She walked into the meeting room and saw the regional director and 2 HR officers sitting with serious faces. "Please sit," one of them said. Rani sat down slowly. "Did you laugh at the old man?" the director asked. She looked down and nodded. "Yes, I did. I'm ashamed." "Why?" "Because I thought he was just a poor man. I never imagined he was someone's father, someone important." The director stared at her. "Every human is important," he said. "Do you know what that man did for his son?" Rani shook her head. "He cleaned schools at night. He worked 2 jobs. He fed his son before feeding himself. That man is a hero. And today, we treated him like garbage." Rani began to cry. "I wrote him a letter. I don't know how to fix what I did." The director sighed. "We will decide what action to take, but I hope this day changes you forever." She nodded through her tears. Later that evening, Ayan received dozens of messages on his phone. Photos of apology letters, emails from HR, requests from staff asking to meet his father. He showed them to his dad. "What do you want to do?" Ayan asked. The old man smiled. "Let them meet me, not because I'm your father, but because I'm a human being who deserves respect." Ayan nodded. "Then tomorrow, you'll come back to the bank, not as a customer, but as our guest of honor." The old man's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were tears of peace. He whispered, "Maybe the world still has some goodness left." The sun rose slowly over the city, casting a golden light over the buildings. But inside the branch of Khan National Bank, the air was heavy with tension. Today was not an ordinary day. Today, The man they had once insulted, the man they had called a thief, was returning, not as a poor customer, not as a stranger, but as the guest of honor. Staff arrived early. The floor was spotless. Flowers had been placed at the entrance. A new welcome board was put up with golden letters. Welcome, Mr. Rahman Khan, father of our founder, and a man of honor. Every staff member was instructed to be present in the main lobby at 10 o'clock a.m. sharp. Phones were kept away. Desks were empty. No one dared to be late. Even Rani, the teller who had laughed the loudest, stood quietly in a simple white dress, holding her apology letter in her hand again. At exactly 9:58 a.m., a black car pulled up outside the bank. Everyone turned to look. The guards opened the door, and out stepped an old man, wearing a clean white kurta, sandals, and a shy smile. He was followed by his son, Ayan Khan, dressed in a sharp black suit. Ayan didn't walk ahead. He walked behind his father. For once, the billionaire followed the janitor. As the doors opened, every staff member stood up straight. Some clapped. Some simply watched in silence. Mr. Rahman walked in slowly, his hands behind his back. He looked around the building, the same one he had been thrown out of just a day earlier. But now he was walking on a red carpet. The same guards who had pushed him out were now standing with their heads bowed. Ayan spoke. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to meet the real owner of this bank, not by money, but by sacrifice. My father. There was a pause. Then applause. Loud and long. Some staff clapped with tears in their eyes. The assistant manager stepped forward. He held a microphone, but his hand shook. Sir, he said to Mr. Rahman, we are so sorry. We forgot our values. We judged you. We were wrong. He handed over a framed certificate. It read, Lifetime Honor Award to Mr. Rahman Khan for teaching us the value of respect, hard work, and humility. The old man looked at it for a few seconds. Then he turned to Ayan. I don't need awards, son, he said gently. I know, Ayan replied, smiling. But they do. Staff now came forward, one by one, offering apology letters and shaking hands with Mr. Rahman. When Rini stepped forward, she couldn't hold back her tears. I laughed at you, she said, and I'll regret it forever. The old man held her hand. I forgive you, he said, but promise me, never laugh at someone because they look poor. You don't know their story. I promise, she whispered. Later, Ayan took the microphone again. I've changed some rules in this branch. From now on, we will have a humanity-first policy. Every customer must be treated with the same respect, whether they wear a suit or slippers. He continued, every month, this branch will serve food to the poor outside these doors, not as charity, but as service, the same way my father once served me. People in the lobby began to clap again. One senior staff member whispered to another, this isn't just a bank anymore. It's a lesson. Before leaving, Mr. Rahman walked around the bank slowly. He didn't say much. He just looked. At the glass counters, at the security cameras, at the walls. He paused at the chair where he had once waited while people laughed behind his back. And then he smiled. He turned to Ayan and said, this time, I'm not leaving in pain. Ayan nodded. You're leaving with your head held high, Dad. When they reached the door, a child outside pointed at Mr. Rahman and said, is he the man from the video, Mama? The mother smiled. Yes, Beta. That man reminded the world how to respect our elders. As the old man stepped into the car, people around the bank clapped again. Not because he was rich, not because he was famous, but because he was right. And because that day, everything changed. After the powerful events at the bank, Mr. Rahman and Ayan returned home. The house was quiet, but their hearts were full. The old man sat on the veranda, looking at the sky. Ayan made tea and joined him. For a few minutes, they sat in silence. not because they had nothing to say, but because sometimes silence speaks louder than words. Then Ion said softly, "Dad, there's something I never told you." Mr. Remen looked at him, curious. Ion continued, "I never became rich by luck. It wasn't just hard work. It was because of a moment from the past, a moment with you." The old man raised his eyebrows. Ion leaned back and began to speak. "When I was 10 years old, you took me to a school for the first time. I didn't have proper shoes. My uniform was old. I was scared." Mr. Remen nodded. "I remember. You held my hand so tight that day." Ion smiled. "Yes, and when I walked into class, the other kids laughed. They said my bag was dirty. They said my shoes were from the trash. I cried after school, remember?" The old man's eyes turned sad. "I remember that pain, son. I wanted to buy you everything, but we were so poor." Ion nodded slowly. "That night, I couldn't sleep, but then I saw something." "What did you see?" Mr. Remen asked. Ion looked directly at his father. "I saw you sitting in the kitchen, fixing my shoes with glue. Your hands were shaking, your back was hurting, but you didn't stop." The old man looked away. His eyes were full now. "I wanted you to feel proud," he whispered. "You did," Ion said. "That moment changed me. That moment gave me fire. I promised myself that one day I'd buy you 100 shoes, and no one would laugh at us again." Mr. Remen smiled, wiping a tear. "You never told me that. I didn't need to. You gave me everything without saying a word." Ion stood up and walked into the house. He came back with a small box. He gave it to his father. The old man opened it slowly. Inside was a pair of golden shoes, not real gold, but polished, shining, beautiful. On the inside, a message was written. "For the man who fixed broken shoes with broken hands. You gave me wings when I had none. These shoes are for your journey, wherever it takes you." The old man covered his face. His body shook as he cried quietly. "I don't need gold, Ion," he whispered. "I know," Ion replied, "but you deserve it." Later that day, something strange happened. A reporter came to the house. He said, "I'm from the Daily Times. We've seen the viral video of the bank incident, but people want to know, who really is Mr. Rahman Khan?" The old man was surprised. "I'm no one special," he said. But Ion spoke up. "Then let them hear the truth." So the two men sat down. The reporter turned on his recorder, and Ion began to tell the full story about how his father worked as a janitor by day and a night guard by night, how he cleaned schools in the morning and mopped hospital floors in the evening, how he collected leftover food to bring home for Ion, and how he once gave up an important surgery just to pay Ion's college admission. The reporter couldn't believe it. "You mean you built your empire from this struggle?" Ion nodded. "Every brick of my company stands on his sacrifice." The next day, the newspaper published a full story titled, "The Man Behind the Billionaire, A Father's Silent Sacrifice." The article went viral. People from all over the country started commenting. This brought tears to my eyes. My own father did the same. Thank you for honoring him. This story should be in school textbooks. Suddenly, Mr. Remen was not just Ion's father. He became a symbol of hard work, of quiet strength, of true love. Schools invited him to speak. NGOs offered awards. Even a film director reached out to Ion, asking to turn the story into a movie. But Mr. Remen said something that shocked everyone. "I don't want to be famous. I just want every child to respect the hands that fed them, even if those hands are dirty." That one line went even more viral than the article. Ion smiled proudly. "You don't need a stage, Dad. You are already a legend." The days after the newspaper story were full of attention. Mr. Remen became a quiet star. His name was on news channels, in articles, and even in school books. But through it all, he stayed the same, humble, gentle and simple. One morning, Ion noticed his father coughing more than usual. "Let's go to the doctor, Dad," he said gently. But Mr. Remen waved his hand. "I'm fine, son. I just need rest." Ion didn't argue, but deep in his heart, he felt something he didn't want to believe. A week later, Mr. Remen fell unconscious while watering the garden. Ion rushed him to the hospital. The doctors ran tests and kept him overnight. The next day, the doctor pulled Ion aside. "Mr. Khan, your father's heart is very weak. He's tired, not just physically, emotionally too. He needs peace. He's given his whole life to others. Now he needs rest." Ion stood in silence. He wanted to scream, but he just nodded. Inside the hospital room, Mr. Remen opened his eyes. "Adon," he said softly, "sit beside me." Ion took his hand. "I'm here, Dad. Always." Mr. Remen smiled. "I have one last gift for you, son." "You've given me everything already," Ion whispered. The old man slowly reached into his bag and pulled out a small folded piece of paper. Ion opened it. It was a letter, old, yellowed with time. He read the words slowly. "To my son Ion, if you're reading this, it means I've given all I had. My strength, my sweat, my hopes. I may not be there when you rise to the top, but know this. You were always my greatest success. Be kind, be fair, and never forget those who lifted you when you couldn't stand." Ion's hands trembled as he finished the letter. "I wrote that when you were 12, Mr. Remen said with a smile. I kept it all these years. I thought you'd need it someday." Tears rolled down Ion's cheeks. "I need you, Dad, not the letter. You." Mr. Remen touched his face. "I'll always be with you, just not in this room. But in every kind act you do, every time you show respect, I'll be there." That night, Mr. Remen fell asleep peacefully. And he never woke up. A nation mourns. The news of Mr. Remen's death spread like wildfire. Social media was flooded with messages. "Rest in peace to the father who inspired a generation. He didn't build buildings. He built a man. His story will be told for years." Ion arranged a funeral open to the public. Thousands came. People from all walks of life. Rich, poor, students, old men, women with children, all stood in silence. Some brought flowers. Some brought letters. One boy held a sign that read, "Respect is greater than money." Mr. Remen proved it. Ion stood before the crowd, holding back tears. "My father never asked for fame. But today, he gets a hero's goodbye. Not because he was rich, but because he lived right." Then he pointed to the crowd. "If you truly want to honor him, respect your parents. Value every worker, and never judge someone by how they look." People clapped. Some cried. A legacy begins. A few months later, Ion opened a new foundation. The Remen Trust. Dignity for all. The foundation built homes for the homeless, paid for poor children's school fees, and every branch of Khan National Bank added a rule. No person shall be judged by clothes or status. Every human deserves respect. At the front of the main bank branch, a statue was placed. It was simple, just a man holding a mop in one hand and a child in the other. The plaque read, "To the janitor who raised a king, not with money, but with love." The days passed quietly after Mr. Remen's story spread across the country. People from all walks of life admired him. Children learned his name in school. Social workers called him a silent hero. But for Mr. Remen, life stayed the same. He still woke up early, still prayed at sunrise, still watered the small plants in his garden. But Ion saw something was changing. His father looked weaker. He walked slower. He coughed more often. And sometimes, he just sat staring at the sky, as if remembering something. One night, Ion found his father sitting alone outside. "Dad," he said, placing a blanket on his shoulders, "you should be resting." Mr. Remen smiled faintly. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. "Hear what?" Ion asked. "The wind. It's peaceful tonight, just like when you were a baby." Ion sat beside him. "I remember everything," his father continued. "How you cried when I left for work. How I carried you through the rain with only one slipper on. And now you carry the world." Ion felt a lump in his throat. "Don't say that, Dad. You're still strong." But Mr. Remen shook his head. "My body is tired, Beta. My time is near. And I want to give you one last gift." Ion tried to stop him. "No, Dad. You've given me everything." But Mr. Remen stood slowly and went inside. He returned holding a small old wooden box. "I saved this for years," he said. "Even when we had no food, I never sold it." He handed the box to Ion. Ion opened it with care. Inside was a faded photograph of a young Mr. Remen standing in front of a tiny shop, holding baby Ion in his arms. Also inside were three simple things: a torn school badge from Ion's first school uniform, a rusty keychain with the letter K for Khan, and a folded paper note. Ion opened the note. It read, "One day you will fly high, but never forget where you began. Money is power, but love is life. When I'm gone, keep this box close. It carries my soul." Ion couldn't speak. He held the box close to his chest, tears running down his face. That night, Mr. Remen didn't sleep in his room. He chose to lie in the garden under the stars. And by morning, the old man had quietly passed away, peacefully, with a smile on his face. The world mourned. News broke quickly. The father of the billionaire passes away peacefully. Social media was flooded with prayers, candles, and messages. He was more than a father. He was a guide. A humble man who changed so many lives. Rest in peace, Rahman Sahib. You taught us what real success is. Ion held a public funeral in the same garden his father loved. Thousands attended. Old women, street children, businessmen, bank staff. All stood together, weeping for a man they had never truly met, but deeply respected. Ion stood in front of the crowd with his father's wooden box in his hands. "My father was not rich," he said. "He never went to college. He never had a title. But today we all stand here to honor him, because he lived with truth. He lived with love." He continued, "He didn't build buildings. He built me. And now I'll carry his light forward." A living legacy. Months passed, but Mr. Remen's name never faded. Ion opened the Remen Foundation for Dignity. Every janitor in Khan National Bank now received full health care. Poor students received scholarships with his father's name. Once a year, all branches held Remen Day, a day of service where every employee, including managers, did 1 hour of janitorial work to remember the value of labor. At the main bank, a statue was placed near the entrance. It wasn't of Ion. It was of Mr. Remen, standing with a broom in one hand and a child's school bag in the other. On the base it said, "He cleaned floors. He carried dreams. He raised a king." Years had passed since Mr. Remen left the world. But his story was far from over. Ion Khan had grown older. He was now in his 40s, running the Khan National Group with wisdom and calm, not just as a businessman, but as a leader with a heart. Every corner of his office carried memories of his father. A framed photo on his desk. The old wooden box kept safely in a drawer. And in his wallet, the folded letter his father gave him the night before he died. Ion had everything now. Money, power, awards, respect. But one thing was missing. A child of his own. He and his wife, Zara, had tried for years. Doctors, prayers, even international treatments. Nothing worked. At night, Ion often sat on the same bench his father once did, looking at the stars. "Will I ever be like you, Dad?" he whispered. One morning, while visiting a school funded by the Remen Foundation, Ayan noticed a boy sitting alone under a tree. The other children were playing, laughing. But this boy was quiet, distant. Ayan walked over and sat beside him. "What's your name, champ?" The boy looked up. His eyes were sharp, but tired. "Samir," he said. "I don't talk much." Ayan smiled gently. "That's okay. I used to be quiet too." The boy glanced at him. "My parents are gone. I live here now. People say I'm unlucky." Ayan's heart ached. He saw something in Samir, a familiar pain, the same hunger for love that he once felt. For weeks, Ayan kept visiting. They played chess, shared lunch, talked about dreams. One day, Samir asked, "Why do you come here every week?" Ayan replied softly, "Because someone once gave everything for me. Now it's my turn." A new beginning. After months of visits, Ayan and Zara made a decision that would change their lives forever. They adopted Samir. For the first time in years, Ayan heard a child call them something he had longed for: Dad. The day Samir moved into the Khan house, he walked into Ayan's room and noticed the statue of Mr. Rehman. "Who is that?" he asked. Ayan knelt beside him. "That's your grandfather. He never wore a suit. He never owned a car. But he was the richest man I ever knew." Samir looked at the statue again. "He looks like someone who loved deeply." Ayan nodded. "Yes, Beta, and I will love you the same way." Passing it on. Years passed. Samir grew into a kind, smart, and confident young man. He studied at the best schools, but never lost his humility. On his 18th birthday, Ayan gave him the wooden box. Samir opened it slowly. Inside were all the same things: the photo, the school badge, the keychain, and the letter. A new letter was added too, this time written by Ayan. "To my son, you are not born from my blood, but from my heart. My father raised me with love, not money. Now I raise you with the same. Always walk with pride, not for who you are, but for who you become for others." Samir folded the letter with care. "Thank you, Dad." Ayan hugged him tightly. "I didn't just want a son. I wanted to become a father, and you made that happen." One last speech. Many years later, Ayan was invited to speak at a world conference. Leaders, kings, and CEOs were present. He stood at the podium. The hall fell silent. "My name is Ayan Khan," he began. "People call me successful, but my real journey began when my father, a poor janitor, walked me to school barefoot." He continued, "I lost him, but I found myself. And today, I've passed that gift to my son." He looked at Samir, sitting proudly in the front row. "This is not just a business story. It is a family story. A story of a father, a son, and now a grandson." He held up the same wooden box. "And as long as this box exists, so will our values: love, respect, dignity." The crowd stood up and clapped, not for the money, not for the fame, but for the legacy of one man, Mr. Rehman.